Well, we are here right now with Dr. Mark Guadagnoli from UNLV, and he is here to talk to us today a little bit about golf and grit and how to practice to learn. And so, Dr. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Nick. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. I appreciate you taking the time to meet with us really quick. So Dr. G has been to several of our golf camps over the years, and he has spoken at a couple of our golf camps over the years, and we sure appreciate him for believing in what we're doing and the information that he provides to junior golfers, the campers, and the parents at our camps is just, second to none. So one of the biggest concepts that he talks about at our camps is practice to learn and play to win. Or how about the good one that I like, Dr. G, is, what is it? So let's see, practice hard, play easy. Play easy.
Yeah.
So Dr. G, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, glad to, Nick. PhDs in cognitive psychology and human performance, and what that really means is that I look at the mind and body to see how we can optimize whatever we do. And one of my favorite areas to work is golf. As you and I have talked about several times. So work in corporate world and universities, and I've been working with UNLV's golf team for 15 years now, I guess.
You've been at it a long time. I didn't think you were that old.
Yeah, I started when I was 12, and
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Dr. G, tell us, we've been talking about grit recently and what it means to be a gritty athlete, a gritty player, how it applies to life, maybe how it applies to golf, and then how maybe it's a wonderful a life skill. But, first off, from your perspective, what is grit and why do you think it's important to a player?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think that I've heard it said several times. Grit is also, I've heard people say, he has heart, he's competitive, he's, those kinds of things all sort of go into that general category. I'll tell you, as just an aside, one of the companies that I work with, one of their core values, the things that they believe are most important, is how much grit someone has. They actually assess that in their interview process. And the reason is because when athletes or corporate people or whomever get into a situation, a challenge, one of two things happen. Either they fail because they're worried about the outcome, they're worried about the struggle, they're worried about whether or not they can do it, and so forth, or they really dig in and focus, and they see this challenge as an opportunity. And that's what grit is to me, is being able to look at every single thing that's in front of you, and your mindset is a can-do attitude. What can I do in this situation to optimize where I am? And it's huge. Golf is one of the great examples of this, because you think, you hit a tee shot that's not exactly where you need to go. You've got the person who complains about it, and they're already, in a bad place because of it. And you've got the person who says, okay, now what can I do with this? Do I need to get it out to a position where I can play? Can I hit it, towards the green? What can I do? And you really think about what's right in front of you, and those people are the ones that very consistently do well and win golf tournaments.
And so we've broached this topic before about how that can be a growth mindset. And so give me some examples, maybe just off the top of your head, about where and maybe even how, we could spend hours on the phone about this, but maybe just how grit is developed. And from a mental standpoint, is it something that is nature versus nurture, or is it something that's kind of in you and you just kind of fertilize, or is it something that you can learn?
Yeah, well, no doubt there are some people that are just, inherently gritty. But what you mentioned, which I'm really glad you did, was the growth mindset. It's work by Carol Dweck at Stanford. And what she said essentially was people have one of two mindsets, either a growth or a fixed mindset. And the fixed mindset are the people who just feel like they should be good, and challenge is embarrassing, and when things don't work, it's embarrassing, and and so forth. And the growth mindset are those people who say everything that's out there is an opportunity for me to get better. And I like the challenge. I like the hard work. I like those kinds of things. I feel good about accomplishing that. And that's actually something that can be taught. In fact, Carol has done several studies where she's taught this idea of a growth mindset. Her book, by the way, is called Mindset, which is an excellent book for anybody to read. But yeah, absolutely, it can be taught. One of the things that is so very important on the practice tee is that you consistently challenge yourself. And with all the guys that I work with, all the players that I work with, because they're not all males, but all the players I work with, we're constantly testing. We have practice, test, practice. And so at some point, you really have to buckle down and really focus, and because you've got to test. And most people, when they go out and practice, they just hit balls. And if they hit one poorly, they just grab another ball and hit it. And that's not the way the game's played. And so you can absolutely train grit by making your practice hard. In fact, it's exactly what you said at the beginning. Easy practice, hard preparation. Hard practice, easy preparation. It's a saying that's hundreds of years old now, but it's still very, very true, and obviously it applies to golf.
Yeah. Well, you've worked with some phenomenal players over the years, obviously, and still work with some phenomenal players there at UNLV. And so what is, to develop grit from a practice standpoint, what do you think would be the number one kind of process to go through to build grit on, let's just say, a practice tee?
Well, I'll tell you the simple answer would be if I could give you a specific drill, but I can't, because it's so much more mindset than it is actually the physical practice. And the mindset is really this: everything that happens, good, bad, whatever, I'm going to learn, I'm going to grow from it. And what can I do to get better as a result of what I just did? And you're constantly asking yourself that question over and over again. And so you're not judging something as being good or bad. You're just looking at it as an opportunity to get better. And that is contrary to human nature. It is contrary to what the huge majority of people do, but it's exactly what you need to do to be a champion. Constantly look at situations and say, what can I do? How can I use this to get better? And how can I challenge myself all the way through? And so the mindset of looking for challenges and then seeing those as opportunities for growth, that's really it. And then, everything else comes from that, really.
So is there a difference between being tough and being gritty?
Yeah.
Are they kind of the same things? Okay. So yes, there's a difference. What do you think the difference is?
Well, the biggest difference to me is the judgment that you have on it. You hear golfers all the time that'll say things like, "Oh, you're such an idiot, I can't believe you missed that putt," right? That's being tough on yourself, and that doesn't help. Gritty is without judgment. It's like, okay, I missed that putt. What do I need to learn from it? And so that subtle mindset is critically important. And I'll tell you where else it works. The difference between tension and attention. So now you've got a shot, or to use the analogy or the example we just did, now you've got a putt again. And if you say, I'm such an idiot, I'm a lousy putter, and so forth, you don't have much of a chance of making that next putt. But if you're gritty and you say, okay, what can I learn? I don't need to borrow as much from the break and so forth. You've got a much better chance of attention to detail as opposed to tension about the putt, and you're much more likely to make it. And as a result of that, your confidence grows and so forth. So now, does that mean that when somebody says you're tough, they're not saying you're gritty? Probably not. I mean, people interchange these words all the time. But what it really comes down to is, are you doing it to punish yourself, or are you doing it to grow? And the person who does it to grow is the one who's gritty.
Right. And so you think that grittiness is something that you can develop, and I'm assuming maybe for some people, because of the way they were brought up, or maybe their experiences as children, or athletics, or even just life in general, that some people just kind of have it more than others, or is it built through a training ground?
Well, it's like, I think of it like a vertical jump, right? I mean, you obviously, Nick, are a phenomenal athlete. You've probably got a 40-inch vertical leap, something like that.
Thank you. Yeah.
and then let's say that I have a 10-inch vertical leap, okay?
Which is accurate.
Yeah, that's a good point, on my good days. And so I can train as much as I want. I'm never going to have a 40-inch vertical leap, but I can optimize my abilities. And so, if you don't train at all, you're still going to have a good vertical leap. And so grit's the same way. At this point, people have the seeds of grit in them. Now, can you optimize that? Can you get better? Absolutely. Absolutely. You can even get worse, actually. I've seen that happen to some people as well. But yeah, it is absolutely something that can be trained, but it's much more of a mindset than it is anything else. It's much more of a mindset of embracing situations and saying, I will get through this, I will be better, I will use this to my advantage. Everything that happens, I will use to my advantage. And
forcing themselves to get better, right, and practice harder, and instead of using maybe the loss of a hole or the loss of a match or a tournament and using it as an excuse as well. I just got a bad break there on such and such, or I would have won the golf tournament, versus, hey, this is a great opportunity for me to learn and grow and develop that grit.
Yeah, and just to be clear, it doesn't mean that you're not mad because you lost the tournament. I mean, that's the competitor. But then what do? Do you just whine about it, or do you say, I'm not going to ever let this happen again? And that's the difference. The gritty person, they're going to say, I don't like it. I don't like this feeling, and I'm never going to have it again. I'm going to go work harder, and I'm going to get better.
And so who do you think is the most gritty player that you've spent time with?
Well, I can tell you that certainly as a college player, Ryan Moore was the most gritty player I've ever known. Ryan would do whatever it took to get the ball around, and he would never give up. And I mean, it was amazing. All the things he won, the AM and the NCAAs and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All those things, he never ever gave up, and never even gave in. Never even gave in to emotions. He used to have this thing where when he would hit a great shot, he would just shake it off. When he did a bad shot, he'd just shake it off. He'd move forward. I haven't worked with him for a couple of years, so I don't really know, although, again, during his college years, he was as gritty as you get. And the thing, is that nature, is it nurture? Probably a combination of both. But I will tell you that there was a point in his sophomore year where he switched from being, less gritty to a person who was extremely gritty, and it made all the difference in the world in his game.
And you don't have to name names here, but is there a player, if they're still in college, certainly don't name them, but if they're out of college, maybe playing on tour, or maybe a guy that played in college for you, that is just a business person now or whatever, that you felt just developed the grit from the time from the first moment you met him until the time he exited your umbrella there. Maybe it's Ryan, maybe it's somebody else in terms of developing that grit.
Yeah, I mean, certainly Ryan got better and better and better. there's another player that I know of, two actually that I can think of right offhand. One is Derek Ernst, who won, I think it was his 8th start, and he changed pretty dramatically through his college years. And for Derek, you know, and I think this is true for a lot of guys, what he really did was he took a step back and really focused on his values, on who he was as a person, and he behaved around that. And that doesn't sound like grit, but it really is, because what you're doing is you're saying, here's who I am as a person, and I'm not going to let my circumstances dictate my success. And that's gritty. You know, he's constantly moving forward, and as a result, he went from a decent player when he came in to a really, really good player and a guy who won on tour, right? You know, a few starts into it. I think Andres Gonzalez, who also is on tour, did a great job of developing grit as he went through, really understanding what's important. And, you know, it's interesting because honestly, I could name a lot more people who didn't develop grit, which is unfortunate. I could name a dozen people who were extremely good junior players who never made it, not necessarily at UNLV's program, but around the country, because they never developed grit. And
yeah, grit certainly takes courage, doesn't it?
You know, it's funny that you say that, because I was just about to say, you know, one of the things that's really important is you have to be able to let go of good to get to great. And that takes courage. And to do that, you know, that means let go of the things that got you here and figure out what's next. And that is grit. And it does take courage. You know, there's classic examples of guys who, you know, really struggled at some point in their careers, but they kept working and they kept doing the right thing, and then all of a sudden they became huge successes. So I think you're right. It does take courage. You know, it takes courage, and it takes an investment into your long-term gain, not just into this putt or that tournament or something like that. Those people who are constantly chasing short-term rewards never get the long-term gain.
Well, I think, and I think you probably agree with this, Dr. G, is that, you know, golf and junior golf is just a wonderful, you know, grounds for developing that grit, and, you know, obviously that grit will get you through a lot throughout somebody's life. And so I appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you again this summer in Dallas and around our different camps, speaking to junior golfers and parents and coaches about, you know, this very subject and practice to learn and the different things that you obviously help educate us on. So, Dr. G, I appreciate your time, and, you know, we'll see you this summer, and I appreciate everything you do.
You're very welcome, and always a pleasure, Nick. Thank you.
Have a great day, sir. Thanks.
You too. Bye.